Imagine losing by 1/1000th of a second. Now, if you happen to play golf and say that you're used to shooting, say, 85, and all of a sudden you hit you knock out a 75, 10 below what you're used to, and somebody beats you with a 76, you're still feeling pretty good about yourself, aren't you? And you've got 18 rounds, 18 holes to make sure that you have a chance to winning. Here is, if you don't win and you lose by 1/1000th of a second, you go home and it's the end of the day. Pack up your trailer and head on back. So they're looking for that edge anytime that they can get it. Yes, Richard?
You gave a golf illustration of someone who's an 85 golfer shooting a 75. And to beat them, you've got to shoot a 74, and somebody does shoot a 74. If you shoot a higher score, you're not going to beat you when you get your 85.
Richard, you're way too observant. You're exactly right. I tell you, that proves that I'm not a golfer. However, you are right. To beat somebody with a 75, he needs to have a 74. So appreciate you pointing that out.
But I think we got your point.
Okay, good. Good. Thank you. Now, her self-talk is going on extremely fast, just like the rest of ours. One of the suggestions that I gave to her in order to combat negative self-talk, because she's around reporters and people wanting to interview her, and there's other race car drivers, and there's the guys in the pit, and everybody means well, but all of a sudden somebody can put some negative thoughts into her mind. And they don't maybe mean to, but how can she combat it? And how can you use these techniques to combat any negative self-talk or things that are being laid upon you from well-intended people? I suggested to her, just as she gets dressed in her fire suit every time for a race, and she puts that helmet on for protection, I told her to put an invisible helmet on anytime that negative self-talk or people that are coming in with negative comments. Just put that imaginary helmet over your head. And you can try this as well. You can put your helmet on if you've got people at the office that are bombarding you with negative thoughts and negative concepts and opinions, and trying to be your good friend, trying to tell you how the market is out there, how many sales you should expect the first month that you're in the sales department, all those things. Go ahead and put your imaginary helmet over you. And something else that you can utilize is on our computers, don't we all have virus protection and maybe even spam deletion? And you think about out there in the real world, aren't we being bombarded with spam every day? You know, on television, radio, friends, relatives, neighbors, all kinds of people are throwing out spam. And so install a mental spam guard that starts to, it won't even allow it into your mind. It won't even allow it into your world. You start it and it deletes it. And it goes over into a special file over there. You can ultimately delete it and get rid of it forever. And the same thing with a virus shield. You install this imaginary virus shield that will protect you from all the viruses that are out there. And these things are very, very valuable. Victims in this world come in, and if you can imagine just being in front of a television, and when you get home and you turn on your TV, do you watch whatever channel happens to be on that TV? You turn it on. Now, I think the victims of this world, they'll watch whatever's on. And they don't know that they've got a remote control. And yeah, exactly. And what we're saying right here in the Self-Talk Toolkit is that you've got a remote control. This is your remote control. Okay? You have choices, and you can decide what kind of a life you want. And we don't have to buy into, well, that's the way it's always been. That's the cards that have been dealt to me. That'd be like sitting there and never changing the channel. So know that you've got that remote control, that you can start to ask yourself, well, what areas would I like to change? And you ask yourself, you know, how much happiness can I handle? How much happiness can you handle? How many good things? My wonderful wife, Fran, she says it's only getting better. And I really believe that. And, you know, ask yourself, would you like for your life to get better? And if so, what areas would you like for it to get better in? And do you think it's possible? And if your self-talk starts to negate that, or if there's other people in your world that start to try to steal your dreams, be very, very careful. And I want you to stay with those folks, but there's some people that you might say, look, either you start to change and start to be more opportunistic and more positive, or else you're not going to drag me down. I can't afford you to drag me down and take me into your density dumpster. You know, if you want to live there, that's fine, but I've been there and it stinks, and I don't want to be there anymore. And I really do believe that there's more in life. A very good friend of mine, Craig McFarland, he is a remarkable person. Bob Costas and Howard Cosell, they both said that of all the athletes that they have ever met, that without a doubt, Craig McFarland is the finest athlete that they've ever seen or met. Now that's quite a statement from Howard Cosell and Bob Costas. Mm-hmm. And who is Craig McFarland? Well, Craig, besides being, and I'm honored that I can call him a dear friend, he is a wonderful human being, and he's performed so many athletic endeavors. He's been a wrestler. He's won 108 gold medals around the world. He's shot a 91 in golf. Not too bad for a blind guy. Ah. Yeah, not too bad. He's totally blind. He lost his sight when he was 2 years old. And he's been clocked at 55 miles an hour downhill snow skiing. He has performed at the Gardens in Florida, the water ski jumps. And several years ago, I used to be on a program in Houston called Wake Up Houston. And they asked me to speak on visualization. And I said, sure, I'd be happy to. When I got back to my home that afternoon, the phone rang, and it was Craig McFarland. And we visited for a few minutes, and I said, Craig, can you be my guest on the next program? He said, sure. What are we going to talk about? And I said, visualization. Now, why would I want a blind person to talk about, oh, he's the best. Yeah, he is incredible. He is so talented. And I asked him, I said, how in the world do you do those water ski jumps? Now, he not only skis in the water, snow skis, and does all these other things, but he actually does the water ski jump. And he said, what happens is that his coach will be holding his arm, skiing beside him, and they come up to the ski jump, and the coach starts to count down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And at that moment, he lets go of Craig's arm, and Craig knows that he's got exactly 2 seconds between the time that he lets go of his arm to the time that he hits that jump. And Craig's thoughts are what's so instrumental to his skis staying flat on the water. And he told me anytime in his self-talk in 2 seconds, he said anytime that his self-talk starts to think, I don't want my skis to go at an angle, all right, it's going to the grocery store with a list of things that you don't want. All right, fine. Then what is it that you want? Well, he says, I want my skis to stay flat and parallel to each other. And by being able to manage our thoughts, then it automatically controls our body language. Okay? So and I told Craig, I said, you know, Craig, I truly believe that the reason that you've been so successful in life is, one, the good Lord, and a lot of good people, his wonderful parents, and I said, by you knowing how to control and manage your self-talk. And I really believe that that's what's happened in his world, is that he's been able to manage and control his self-talk. By controlling his self-talk, he's got 20/20 vision. He's really got 20/20 vision. As a matter of fact, the name of his book is Inner Vision. And of course, you can find out more about that on our website. And someday I hope that you all will get to meet him. He's a wonderful individual. So to summarize what we've been talking about, one, do you start to believe now that we can change? That change is possible? And we can change whether we're 7 years old or 27 or 47 or 77. It doesn't matter. And what's been keeping us from changing, I really do believe, and I think that you all are starting to realize too, that it's been our self-talk. It's been what we've been saying to ourselves. Not necessarily the words. You know, we can say, oh, it's going to be a great day, but then what do the little voices say? And that's what we really want to help you and to help all of you to start to understand and to realize. We're not professing to think positive and have a positive mental attitude, and if it works, that's fine, use it. But what we're really trying to help you to understand is, hey, when you know, it's easy to say the words, but what's the little voices saying? And are they negating the words that are coming out? Here on the set, we took a break a little bit ago, and some of the guys were talking about, hey, I'm a good grip, and I'm a good gaffer, and those are fine. Those statements are very, very good. But what I want you to realize, and what we've done in the book and the workbook, is to give you statements of not only I am, but more importantly, I think, is statements of I want. Okay, I want to be a good grip. And that's a terminology for the movie industry. But what is it? I want to be a good parent. I want to be a good grandparent. I want to be a good manager. I want to be a good dancer. I want to be a good singer. I want to have patience. Because if we say, oh, you know, I've lost my patience all these years and I'm going to try some of that stuff Jim Will's talking about, and we say, okay, I now have all the patience in the world. What are the voices saying, first of all? And a lot of times, I think that just positive affirmations, sometimes we don't buy into it. And that becomes frustrating, and we say, well, that stuff just doesn't work. Well, let's try a different approach. Instead of saying, I have or I am, if that feels comfortable for you, go ahead and use that. But if it doesn't feel comfortable for you, go ahead and utilize I want. Okay? Does that make sense? Yeah. You know, I am 20 pounds lighter. Well, no, Jim, you're not. Look in the mirror. But I want to lose 20 pounds, I can all of a sudden buy into that part. And then once I have lost that 20 pounds, or I'm on the way to losing that 20 pounds, then it becomes, hey, you know, I am thin and I am healthy. But if I'm not thin and if I'm not healthy right now, and if I start to try to say I'm thin and I'm healthy, then maybe we don't buy into that. So what I want you to do is to start to develop an easier method to attain your goals. First, know that it's possible to change, and then by managing and controlling your self-talk, that I think is going to help you to start to change, and then give yourself some sneak previews of that change. You know, change is asking us to get out there on that 1,200-foot cliff, and for most of us that gets a little nerve-wracking, and so take some baby steps. Go ahead and maybe start, instead of 1,200 feet, let's try it at 2 feet. Yeah. And once we feel comfortable there, then we can go on up to 4 or 6 or 10. Eventually, we can go on up to 1,200 feet and beyond. And we can even probably balance on the second chair. and it's very comfortable for that person, but it's not comfortable for us. So in order for us to do that, go ahead and practice some visualization. Practice the things that we teach you in the book on visualization. Give yourself some sneak previews. Just like if you're going to go to a movie and you've already been there and you've seen it before, then you know the tension's not there as much, perhaps. Maybe it's still a little bit, but you already know what's going to happen. Steve Owens was the, I believe, 1969 Heisman Trophy winner. And he told me once, he said, Jim, before every contest, every time that he ever played football, he said that he would see himself running over the defense. He'd see himself running around the defensive players. He had already played the game several times in his mind before the Saturday or Sunday contest. And that's giving yourself that sneak preview. So all the great athletes and all the people that are really successful in life, I even had a chef at a very nice restaurant, and he said, Jim, I can take a plate and I can already see what the food is going to look like before it's even on there. So he's visualizing. And again, everybody that's doing well, and you think about the things that you're doing good at, you're visualizing, but you're just visualizing in a way that it's helping you, and you're seeing it before it even takes place. Larry Bird was asked once, a person said, are you surprised when you hit 15 out of 20 free throws or 15 out of 20 three-point shots. And you know what his response was? He said, heck, I'm surprised if I don't get 20 out of 20. And that's why he was and still is a professional, but and you know, their expectations are to hit every one of their free throws or to hit every one of their three-point shots. And what happens to us amateurs a lot of times is that we will choke by thinking about what we don't want. And as long as we know what we don't want, then unfortunately that happens. And unfortunately our self-talk starts to come back and say, see? So we want to stop that negative repetition and come back in as, what is it that I do want? Keep in mind your grocery store list. A gentleman a long time ago, his wife said, well, he was moping around on a Sunday afternoon, and she said, why don't you call Jim? And he said, I don't want to talk to him. She says, why is that? And he said, I already know what he'll say. And she said, what's that? And he said, well, he'll just say, what is it that you want? and that's really what I want you to start thinking. And as long as it's good for you and the people around you, your family, your employees, the people that are in your world, as long as it's good, then I say more power to you. Go for it. You can use these same concepts and hurt people and hurt yourself. And I'm not endorsing that. I would never do so. But if you'll take these same concepts and use it to where it's a win-win situation, it's good for you and it's good for the people around you, then think what can happen in your world, in your life, and the lives of the people around you. I really think that if you will take and read this book, and please don't read it once, read it many times. If you're like me, I like to highlight, I like to make notes in it. Keep it to yourself. This is very private and very personal, and especially the workbook. That's something that you'll want to really guard and make sure that nobody ever sees it. And only if they do believe in you and they do want to try to help you with your goals. Otherwise, don't show it to them. Just keep it to yourself. Well, I want to thank you all today. This has been a special moment for me, and I hope a very, very special moment for each of you. One of my favorite philosophers, Yogi Berra,